guys, welcome to the Homestead. So today we're going to do something a little bit different. We're going to talk about 80s kids, growing 80s kids in 2025. Stick with me here. It snowed last night, and so there is a bunch of snow out there. I had to go outside this morning and basically shovel all of my solar panels up on the roof. And so I got a great workout this morning, and I feel great. I'm looking forward to this being the last major freeze of the winter, and then hopefully we can cruise into spring and get our plants ready here very shortly for getting things in the garden. So I hope you're working on your garden. Well, let's talk about this. Raising 80s kids in 2025. Now, I tell my children, the 80s were a magical time. Back when you could drink from the garden hose, nobody cared, and you stayed out late into the night, playing in the streets with all of your friends, having sleepovers. There were no cares in the world. And, life was pretty good and things were made of quality. I just posted this over on X, and I've told you guys, you need to be following me on X. I post a lot of great memes, but this is one I posted recently, and it was a fridge, obviously made in the 1980s. And it is time itself. They do not make things today that are quality like they did back in those days. I was born in the 70s, or I was raised in the 80s, and I played outside all the time, got to run around. I was fortunate enough, blessed enough to be raised in a place on the Merrimack River bottoms of St. Louis, South St. Louis. And I got to run around the woods. Me and my friends ran around all the time with BB guns or 22s, playing on the river bottoms and just being boys. And that was a fantastic time. Every once in a while, we were allowed to come inside and play Atari. I had a ColecoVision, and we played sometimes in Nintendo when that came out. But, for the most part, we spent our time outside. And it goes back to, okay, how can we grow children today the way we grew children back then? Because I believe, and I think probably you'll agree with me, that was a more wholesome time. That was and our kids turned out better for it. Having those experiences. So we'll talk about 5 ways today you can grow 80s kids in 2025. Number 1, this is going to be a doozy for some of you people out there. Limit screen time. Limit screen time. If your children are always doing this, they can't be doing anything else. And they're getting way too much screen time. You limit how much they're on. You limit what they're on, how late they're on. You've got to limit screen time. There's this meme that I have that I share sometimes, and it's like, how do you get your kids to read books? I don't give them devices. It's that simple. My kids are avid readers. I feel very accomplished as a dad, having made my boys very energetic readers. They love going through books, and they go through a lot of them. My youngest son, who's 12 right now, is screaming through Louis L'Amour books. Perfect books for boys. He loves those books, and he's 12 years old, and he's going through them one after the other. And he has other things he reads too, but he loves those Louis L'Amour books. Limit screen time, okay? And then the second thing we're going to talk about is playing outside. Because if you limit screen time, what else are you going to do with your life? You've got to limit screen time and then go play outside. It's those playing outside experiences that are going to allow that creativity and that wonder and those questions to come up in mind as you see things. I can't tell you how many times I've encountered even adults who ask the most basic of questions that just spending time outside would have answered in their childhood. But it's obvious they never did that or didn't do very much of it because they don't know anything. I can't tell you how many times I've had, because we have people over here we have a big camping event every year for a number of people on our homestead. It's called Sukkot, the Feast of Tabernacles, and we can get about 100 campers out here. And I can't tell you how many times I have had children come here and they see a bug and they cry because they're scared of it. Every year. So it's like, but if you put them in that environment more often than not, you're going to expose them to these things, and they're going to be better. They're just going to have so much more than their peers who do not. It's so important to give them outside playing time. And that brings us to number 3. If you want to raise 80s kids, in 2025. Like, limit screen time, make them play outside. And again, this is going to be hard for some of you. Make them play outside with guns. And I think some of you, it'll be hard for you because you live in maybe some more suburban areas. You're not rural. You're not a rural homesteader where that can take place. And right now, today, if you have your children playing outside in a suburban area, you're probably going to get SWAT called on you. There's some Karen or Margaret neighbor is going to be like, there's children out there with guns. And then the SWAT team shows up because we've had enough horrible experiences, in the last 20, 30 years that show when kids are out there running with guns, it's probably up to no good, because now we have all of our children inside playing video games with guns and not outside playing with guns. But if you can limit screen time, make them play outside, and make them play outside with guns, that you're well on your way to raising an 80s kid in 2025. So and my children are out there all the time, especially my youngest. Both my boys grew up with guns and playing with guns. I had them shooting lever action .357s when they were 2 years old. They've done all that. Both of my children have killed deer out there during hunting season. And my youngest son, he's always out there. He saved up his money, and he bought a cheap pair of thermals, and he goes out there and he protects our chicken coop, killing a lot of critters who would eat chicken at night. And so he keeps the critter count low. And all my neighbors can thank him because he's keeping that population low with those thermals and a shotgun. Yes, my 12-year-old runs outside with a shotgun. And whether it's a BB gun or whatever, give them marksmanship training. Let them discover how to. I used to shoot birds all the time as a kid. Let them go out there and shoot crows. It's completely legal to do that. And it gives them it builds their marksmanship. It gives them time, gives them trigger time. And 80s kids, a lot of times, had a lot of trigger time, more so than the kids do today. All right, so that's number 3. Okay, number 4, learn to cook meals at home. Learn to cook meals at home. Most people are subsisting through the drive-thru today for most of their meals. Definitely more than 50% of their meals you're getting from the drive-thru. You're getting from ultra-processed foods, meaning at a restaurant somewhere or a box somewhere. And if you're getting it from a restaurant, you're getting it from a box because it's all coming off the same Cisco truck. Okay, no matter what restaurant you go to, unless you're going to a high-end Michelin star restaurant where they make everything from scratch, you're getting all your food off a Cisco truck. It all comes from the same place. ConAgra Foods, the Medusa of the food industry. It all comes from the same place. So you're eating junk. Stop eating junk and get your kids accustomed to seeing you cook your meals at home. Mom, this is your responsibility. Dad, your responsibility. You guys need to do better, because I know it's easy to just go through the drive-thru, order takeout, or order, what do they do today? What's those services where they deliver to your door? I've never done it, so I don't know. But I've seen the apps and I've seen the commercials. But yeah, you can do all that, and it's so easy. They make it so easy. And what it does, it makes you lazy and it makes your children lazy. Learn to cook. Learn to cook with ingredients. You're going to eat better than all the restaurants out there. And unless you're going to a 5-star or a Michelin-style restaurant, you're not getting good food. So you want to raise 80s kids in 2025? Make food from home. Learn to cook. I tell people, hey, what's the best way I can get started on homesteading? The answer is always the same. Learn to cook from home, because once you learn how to make meals with ingredients, simple, basic ingredients that you can grow on your own homestead, once you get a homestead and you're growing those things, you'll know what to do with them. You can use them in your meals prep. You can use those on a day-to-day basis. But learn to cook from home. That's the number one way you can begin homesteading. And it's the number one of the top 5 ways in which you can grow 80s kids in 2025. Okay, number 5, begin camping. Take your family, dads, take your families camping. What that's going to do is going to challenge you in a lot of ways. It's going to grow and make your family a closer-knit family. You're going to have to depend on each other. You're going to suffer together. And suffering brings unity. It does. Absolutely does. And we don't do that anymore today. Today, we're addicted. We have this disease called comfort. And camping many, many times is uncomfortable, but it creates many, many memories that you and your children will never forget. Absolutely. I have many memories of camping with my parents and camping, as a family with my sister and my parents. I remember we'd go to Colorado, we'd camp, tent camping, not mostly if you look up like the KOA, North American Camping Guide and report, they have that online. You can look that up. Pretty interesting, but it's mostly geared, it seems like, towards RV, trailer camping, or pull behind camper, or glamping. Tent camping is where you want to go. I have memories of camping in Colorado, Appalachia. I always called it Appalachia, but then I learned, it's like saying I threw an Appalachia. Appalachia. So Appalachia, all kinds of different places. And so we did that. Camping at Boy Scouts, with my dad and doing all that stuff. And it built memories. I remember one time, I think it was in Appalachia, where we camped and we built the tent on top of a giant ant mound. And boy, did we know about it that night. And then another time, I think it was during a rainstorm in Colorado, our tent collapsed and we all ended up in the car at like 2 a.m. It was horrible, but it was wonderful. And I hope that you can do that with your family and experience that. And yes, there'll be some times where you struggle and it's going to be emotional probably for moms, because when you camp, the majority of the burden usually falls on the women and cooking and keeping the kids clean and just all that stuff. And so, but it's going to make you tighter knit as a family, that experience, and doing that on a regular basis, and knowing, both you and your wife, knowing that you need to do this for your children. Okay, it's important. And that's one of the big things we don't do today. Camping on a regular basis, back in the 80s, lots of families did it. It was something, it was a yearly event, if not many times a year event. But today, it's hardly ever done. I'll give you one piece of advice if you're going to camp. Don't buy those tents at Walmart. All that stuff is garbage. In fact, don't buy your tents in any retail store. If you want a good tent, get a Kodiak or a Kodiak-like, that's one brand, canvas tent. Get a invest in a good canvas tent like Kodiak, or there's other brands out there. Research, do your due diligence, find one and buy it. We've been using the same Kodiak tent for over 10 years, and it's in great shape still today. It's fantastic. I take care of it, and we put it up every year, and we camp in it every year. The Kodiak canvas. So get a canvas tent. Don't buy that stuff at Walmart. What do you think? Are there other things out there? I mean, I love G.I. Joe in the 80s. I mean, they don't make stuff like that. I watched one of the episodes years ago, and it was talking about how they were actually making fun of the United Nations on the cartoon. And I'm like, this is why this is not on TV anymore. I mean, growing up as an 80s kid was a completely different experience. You had that commercial that came on all the time.
It's 10 p.m. Do you know where your children are?
Because we were outside. We were playing. Latchkey kids. Do you remember that? Latchkey kids? A latchkey kid, if you don't know, you youngins out there, was someone whose both parents worked, and there was nobody at home when that kid arrived at home. And so after school, a lot of kids whose both parents worked, they would go to latchkey, and they would basically babysit them for a certain amount of hours. And then parents either would pick them up, or they would go home after that. They would get on a bus, and they were the bus that arrived after everyone else arrived at home, and they were called latchkey kids. But that was something that was not the norm. Most of the time, mom stayed at home, and dad went to work. And back in the 80s, that was fine. One income could support a family back in the 80s, for the most part. And some parents worked 2 jobs in order to maybe get some extra income, but most parents, had that situation where dad went to work, mom stayed at home, and the latchkey kid was in the minority. But that's not the way it is today. We need to do some things different. I think everyone probably can agree that kids who are raised in the 80s, born in the 70s, they're just of a different mindset than the kids are today. And I love this meme too. This is another meme I like. Tell me this meme is wrong. Tell me it's wrong. It's not wrong. You know it's true. Gen X, is a tough breed. There will never be another one like us. All right, let me know what your comments are below. Is there another one you'd add to the list, top 5 list? Maybe I'm missing something, but leave a comment below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. All right, guys. Hey, check out over at AmericanHomestead.com, the events page. I'm going to be speaking at the Okie Homesteading event coming up in March. It's going to be a fantastic time. I'm going to be talking about, my talk is going to be how to prepare your homestead for collapse, because I believe that is an economic certainty. The math is already there. The cake is baked. So how do you prepare your homestead for collapse? We're going to talk about that over at the Okie Homesteading Expo coming up in March. All the details are over at AmericanHomestead.com at that events tab up there at the top. Click on that and you can see it some of the other places I will be speaking at this summer. I hope to see you there. See you next time on the homestead. Bye. One of the best perks about living off-grid is that I never pay an electric bill. I love being my own power company, but that means when things go wrong, I have to be the one on call. So I try and use reliable components for my power production. For the last couple of years, I have been promoting OUPES solar generators. I've been using them and abusing them, and as it turns out, they are pretty good products. They have power generators for all occasions, and they can be charged by permanent or portable solar panels, as well as AC power. They offer true lithium iron phosphate batteries, and this is important. Recently, a family in my area had a different brand that uses the less stable nickel manganese cobalt or NMC type batteries. The unit caught fire in the middle of the night. It was a scary situation and it caused damage to the home, but thankfully nobody was hurt. The generator, as you can see, was a total loss. This drives home the point on why it's so important to employ solar generators like the OUPES brand that uses the much more safe and stable technology of lithium iron phosphate, otherwise called LiFePO4. They offer small generators for travel or for powering an entire home and everything in between. These are great backups to have in a medical emergency or to power a freezer full of your favorite meat products, or as I have shown in past videos, for even backup AC and DC power sources for ham radio communications. If the grid goes down, you're going to be thankful you have one of these units. You can find the link in the description of this video or click on the banner ad found on the front page of our website at AmericanHomestead.com. Right here, that banner ad right there on AmericanHomestead.com. Hey guys, did you know you can become a patron of an American Homestead? They get access to private videos, and we send them gifts from the homestead that we make here on the homestead. And we also enter our patrons into special giveaways that are only available to them. And before you go, please check out these other great videos. Go ahead, click. Oh wait.